Hello.
Hello.
I'm not the only one in this class, am I?
Hello.
Yes, Chaos. You want to start with us on the takeaways from your last class? I'm curious. I want to learn from you the valuable lessons you learned from Engineer Kolako.
Okay. One of the key things I learned from you was the work permit or permit to work. I come to understand how important it is and why it is almost absolutely necessary for some specialized works. I was quite enlightening for me.
I didn't hear the first statement you made. What did you say was enlightening for you? What was so important that you described? I didn't hear the word you used at the beginning of the statement.
Okay. I said the permit to work.
Okay. PTW. Okay.
Permit. I came to understand how important it is for some works and the essence of it. So
okay, that's good. Permit to work. All right. Chineze.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Good evening, sir. Yeah, my takeaway from the last class, honestly, the class was an interesting one, although not fully delivered.
Tell me about it not fully delivered. Did it go over 7 p.m. or you didn't get a 7 p.m.?
We were supposed to cover about 230 slides, and we were able to do just, I think, not up to 80.
No. That's not the way that class is designed. You see that 230 slides there? It's like your textbook. That particular health and safety course. In the next iteration of this program, we're going to split it into five different classes. He basically highlights the most important items, and then you're supposed to read up the whole of the slides. That's we don't have any other slide that is half as big as that in terms of volume, do we?
I don't think so.
So there's no chance that a lecturer can deliver 200 and something slides in 3 hours. That's 5 classes. So in running through it, he's supposed to pick up the highlights and talk through the highlights. Usually, I know that when he picks those highlights and talks through the highlights, he will run over 7 o'clock. So sometimes he ends at 7:30, 7:20 in previous batches. But I still need to have a discussion with him on how to. So it was my idea that he should give you all of the content, right? Usually, facilitators will pick and choose a few things and put the highlights there and teach based on that. But I said, no, give them everything so that they can have the whole content to study. Okay?
Yes, sir. Now, my takeaway is knowing that safety does not apply particularly to a certain level of personnel on site. It cuts across everybody on site, everybody. Be you a vendor, be you a visitor, and to all staffs on site, you must be safety conscious. And the part where he talked about unsafe act and unsafe conditions, the unsafe act are usually person-based, usually people on site that causes an unsafe act, and unsafe condition are usually process-based. And the use of stop car to stop an operation which is not safe, may display it, and stop any operation irrespective of who is handling such operations. And this particular one, knowing that for routine jobs, you need using standard of operating procedure, whereas for non-routine jobs, you need to acquire a job safety analysis, or in our site we use a GRA, job risk analysis. Where they come to assess the location for the operation to be carried out, and after which a permit to work is issued, and possibly a toolbox stock is carried out as well.
Yes,
that's usually my takeaway.
Toolbox stocks are compulsory. whether it's an unusual, non-routine or routine job, you should do 2 bus tours every day, right? So that's something you should implement. JSA, GRA, so you can call it job risk, job safety, job hazard, JHA. They're all the same documents. It's just different semantics of describing it. So that's okay. And then it goes with all the non-routine jobs that you require a permit to work for. The routine jobs, you don't require a permit to work. You use a safe work method statement. That also already has the risk element or the safety element built into the SWMS. So that becomes like a standard we all study and get used to in delivering the work on a routine basis. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, Wayne, let's hear from you.
Hello. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, your audio is good. Go ahead.
Okay. What I gathered from a previous class was about safety, how important it is, and is the most underrated department in Nigeria working environment. And safety is not just left for safety officers alone, but also as a facility manager, we should consider safety very important. Every equipment you are going to purchase, you should also consider the health and safety of that equipment to employee or workers. Safety, we'll consider it in different aspects: temperature, vibration, emission, and so on and so forth. So the temperature, the amount of heat an equipment is emitting will determine if it is safe or not. For a generator, as it was used as an example, the noise that is coming from that generator also tells if it's safe or not. So we have to put it in place to limit it, like building a house and a cover for that generator.
Okay, thank you very much. So usually, if someone with a safety background teach safety to facility manager, they tend to see safety as a function independent of FM. But my practice as an FM teaches safety as an FM responsibility. So even if you have safety officers on the site, the FM is the one that is accountable for the safety of people in the facility. So safety officers on your site are actually advisors. They are on advisory or consultancy level basis with you, the FM. You are the executor of safety on the site. So when it comes to everything safety, don't be on the reactive end where you wait for safety officers to come and tell you what to do. You must already know what to do. That's the important thing. Be proactive about safety. Thank you, Wayne. Vianana.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, class.
Good evening.
Okay, I have a background in safety, and I want to appreciate you for the course content. I think it's very rich, and we are privileged to have even the instructor because he was able to deliver even within the short time that amount of content. And I must say thank you so much for this opportunity. All right.
And one more thing before you continue. Engineer Kolako is the manager of sustainability and environmental consultancy with PricewaterhouseCoopers Nigeria. So he's not just one of those run-of-the-mill safety consultants. He's operating at the peak of that practice. And so we go out to get the best to ensure that we are not only having content, but we also have people who have depth, who have breadth and experience in that particular field come to teach it. So you cannot just see the content, you see the value of the individual that comes to teach that particular specialized area. So thank you for that. So go ahead.
Right. Okay, so he made a very important point, and which resonated. We have in some organization, we have people providing services where at some point they seem to be as if we are competing. For example, you have the safety department, you have the security department, and sometimes it's like there are some gray areas. But just like he said, it is supposed to be collaborative. We are not competing with anybody because in the first place, we are working for the same organization. All right, so we should work with that mindset of being collaborative. And just like you also said, it is everybody's business. Yes, there is a safety person, but he actually functions as an advisor. You are the ones implementing. For example, if there are unsafe conditions and unsafe acts, most times we are the ones who will close out such unsafe conditions.
Exactly.
Fantastic. So we cannot absorb ourselves from the safety function. So I think that's my take on that, what I think we can share with others.
Okay. Thank you so much. Francis.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Actually, before that class, me and HSC teaching lessons, I run away from it. Even when I was in Saipem, I don't like it. It looks so cumbersome. When they explain, they tell you different, they use their professional words, I run away. And I was one of the safety champion on my floor. So I knew the job, but I was running. But during that class, before the class, when I got the modules, I didn't know even when I finished the 208 pages when I was reading it, because it was as if somebody was explaining it to me. You could easily go to that module and whenever you have issues about safety and get some pages and solve your problems, maybe with the help of internet and search too. So then, like you said, you use the round peg for the round hole. The person that tutored it was the perfect person. He wanted more time from the way he was teaching, but I gave it to him and to you, sir, for choosing the best person. So, like, I got two or more things. Like he said, we should always have safety champions amongst our FM teams. So from that, I got to know that within every facility, you should use even a cleaner as part of your safety champions. Not even a security, maybe one of the security guards, one of the cleaners, and even one of the occupants, your clients. In fact, most of your occupants should be part of the safety champions because they are the ones that can really enforce safety because it's their facilities. So, and again, he said we must promote standard procedure too during toolbox for routine jobs, which I really like. Yes, I really like that point that we must promote that at all times. You know, when you start putting things in people's head every day during toolbox, they get used to. That was how I got used to doing safety in Saipem. I don't really see anything wrong in overlooking so many things. But when they continue to hammer it on our head, then you start seeing unsafe acts and unsafe conditions. So those are the things I got, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you so much. That's very good. Chris, let's hear from you. Franklin. Franklin, are you there? What happened to Chris? Tosin, let's hear from you. Tosin, give us a takeaway from the last class, please. Yeah, you're muted.
Part of my reason is malfunctioning my phone.
Okay. The audio is good now. Go ahead. Okay, let's move over to Emeka. Emeka, take the mic, please. Is there something I'm saying that's making their net? Is it their network that's dropping them off or what? Emeka is still here. Emeka, please speak. I see you.
Hello, sir.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, Victor. Welcome.
Yes. My major takeaway from the last class was when he was talking about hazard. He made mention of, said how harmful substance get into our bodies. He also, the main point was when he said the main hazard in the workplace should be communicated to the staffs and to everyone in the workplace. Initially, I always felt like when you see an hazard, you try to protect it, but sometimes you don't keep everybody in the know. You just walk towards it. But when he made mention of it, and he also gave illustration of why they all need to be communicated to everybody in order to keep everyone safe. If people know about an impending hazard, that way it will create a safe environment for everybody. And also the need to always report near misses. And we should also, how do I put it, advise and teach during toolbox to everyone in the site that they should always report near misses. And whenever they see a situation where could lead to an accident, they should always, as well, report to the proper authorities, which are the HSC officers and the terminal, as well as the facility manager. Thank you very much, sir.
Very good. Thank you very much for that. And for those of us who have contracts for clients, you're managing a contracts on the client side. There may be this misconception about who to report to. We may end up reporting to our management all of those HS statistics and incidents as they happen, and the client does not get to know. I just suffered some serious case recently where my team in one of the sites reports to me, and we do the root cause and we do all of those hazard prevention. And then the client comes back to me to say, hold on, I had this happen. I said, yes, I know, we're taking care of it. And he says, no, that information is for us, right? Now, in this particular instance, it wasn't explicitly stated in the contract that this is something that should be reported, but it's an obligation. And that happen in the client site, while you are dealing with it, make sure the client know that that incident has happened. All of the study and research you are doing around it, and what you are doing to prevent it, must be communicated. And then once both parties have an understanding of what has happened and lessons learned from it, they both agree on how to cascade that information down to everybody on both sides of that agreement, because we're supposed to watch out for each other, and we must know what has happened, what caused it, so that when such a cost, an unsafe act, unsafe condition is happening again, people will not overlook it, because we know now that something serious has come out of that in the past. Okay, so that's a very a good note for everyone here. Don't think that having information, managing it with team is enough. No, critical stakeholders, especially your clients, should be informed so that they don't suffer that repeats or know it and come to blame you like they did to me this recent weeks about such an incident. Okay, who hasn't spoken yet? Please give us a takeaway. It's your turn. Take the mic if you are there. Okay, if I can hear from let's move over to Tom. Tom, can you speak now? We have one Tom, right? Yes, Tom. Emmanuel, Emmanuel, please go ahead.
Good evening, class. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, welcome.
So my takeaway from the last class It was, well, first of all, I do need to say thank you for the facilitator. He was quite in-depth about safety, because he kept emphasizing the need for safety, and that really got to me. So my major takeaway was the job safety analysis steps, which is something I can apply to my own place too. Also the importance of near miss, just like Chukwemeka said. He was emphasizing how much, near miss before an accident actually happens, how near misses itself probably led up to it, things that could have been done to prevent that major accident. Also the risk and hazard control, because he was emphasizing also on, engineering and how these controls can help prevent them, and he spoke about discipline being one of them. He added that, although it wasn't on the manual, but he added that part of discipline. So basically, the whole idea of safety on FM managers, how it can be helpful in our job. So that was very useful for me.
All right, thank you so much. That's good. Tom, your hand was up. Please go ahead.
Good day, everyone. I don't know if you can hear me. It's quite noisy.
Yes, your audio is good. Your audio is good.
All right. Thanks for the section yesterday and for bringing up the instructor. My take home yesterday was on asset and integrity management. He was able to use the PDC Act, PDCA cycle of improvement. And from there, I gathered that asset and integrity management spans across design stage, operating stage, and maintenance stage, and of course, improvement stage. So whenever we're looking at asset integrity, we should look at it in this spectrum. There's 4 cardinal
you mentioned BDE framework. What does those BDE mean?
Yeah, plan, do, check, and act.
PDCA, okay, PDCA. Yes, because I know PDCA, so I was okay. Thank you. Let me hear from Daniel. Daniel, please take the mic and give us a takeaway.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon. Welcome.
Good afternoon. Well, basically, I would say that the lecture for me was like a general a refresher course for me, refreshing me on all the do's and things I should actually know as a facility person in regards to safety on location. Basically, what hit me was the emphasis made on which actually should be activities or events to actually hold before any task is being before we take on any task on our site. And then they need to actually do some level of risk assessment on all of the tasks we want to perform, getting to see what the risks are and how to mitigate them and actually prevent them where there is. And then, if at all there are, his emphasis on making reports for even near misses and for any of such incidences that happen, and they need to make such reports to make entries for them. Like, they are very important for me. Those are the highlights for me on those lectures he made, because by and large, all that he said were like everyday things for us, except that it was just being something that was spoken from a key professional. So for me, it was like an everyday thing, but then was to hang on to all those things that we actually commonize on site, so that we're able to imbibe them and it becomes an everyday thing for us. Not minding that we are not specifically safety officers, but actually people who are stakeholders on site.
Yes, we are the accountable parties for safety. I can't stress this enough. Safety officers and every other person on site may be responsible for different aspects of safety. but the facility manager is the accountable party for safety, because people's safety in the facility you manage you are accountable for it. Any kind of safety breach, you are accountability. Okay, so there is no, it's not my job, it's not my job. No, it is you that has ultimate accountability. And if I can sing this in enough, it will help us to own it and drive safety as our core. Because if you don't drive safety as your core, you see it as something you are doing because somebody else's job, you are trying to help somebody else to do his job, then you didn't get the whole gist at all. You didn't get it at all. You have to own it. You have to become the main driver of safety in your site. You are accountable for everybody's safety around you. Okay. Toby.
Good evening, everyone. My major take from the last class is the definition between a hazard and a risk in a facility or any facility we are managing. Hazard is a source of danger claim, but risk is the measure or scale of probability that a harm will occur from an hazard. And we must actually take that.
Very good, very good. So while we're identifying hazards, if an hazard is contained, it is not risk, right? So our worry really is the risk, but we need to identify all hazards so that we can do the analysis to determine the level of risk to decide what to do about that hazard. If the risk is zero, the hazard could be there and there's no big deal, right? So that's that. Thanks a lot for bringing that up, Toby. All right, who else wants to speak before we get into, I have a question for you about safety, because this is very important, and I would like to know if someone else wants to speak first before we go into my question. Ngozi, Theodora, Chinyere, who else? Razak, who else haven't spoken today? Let's see. Kingsley is there. I think there are the 5 people that have not spoken so far today. Do you guys want to say something about your class before you answer my questions?
Yes, Mr. Meka wants to say something. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. What I took home last lesson is that it's very important for me to be mindful of safety in my organization. Not minding that I'm not a safety officer. I learned that if anything goes wrong in my organization, that I have failed. I did not discharge my duty very well as a facility manager. Since that day, I learned that I should, without waiting for the safety management, go around the environment and all the facility and make sure that everything is working or that everything is in order. Anything that is not is about to spoil or that will endanger people's life or whatever, or health, I should make sure that I do it, even without letting the safety officers know. They may know, but I may go ahead and do it to make sure that I don't fail. I learned that if that something happens in an organization, that it is my responsibility that I have failed. If something happens, if something goes wrong.
Thank you. That's very good. Thank you for that. Yeah. Okay, anyone else?
Yes, I want to say something.
Okay, go on, Lizzie.
I wasn't in class, but I went through my notes. And then what caught my attention was criteria for reporting. Whenever there's an incident, we look at the impact on the person, the environment, but what we skip most of the time is the cost implication of that incident. And then most importantly, the impact it has on the reputation of the organization.
Yes.
Those are some of the things we know. And you know, those are extremely important. They're as important as the environment and the individual. Okay. Because for reputation, now it's even worse because we have the social media. So the minute there's any incident, even before you have the opportunity to do a report on it, it's already on the social media platform. So if you have a reporting line that is active on social media, they get the reports before you go ahead and do
yes.
So
which will be risky, right?
Yes, it's very risky. So that really caught my attention, and I've had one or two incidences like that. That it's even the head office calling you to say what's happened here, and then you now start feeding them. But yes, because you've not even gotten yourself to sort things out on ground. Talk more of sitting down to do a report. So that's it. So that's really caught my attention.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very important. And in this particular instance I shared with you guys, we have a WhatsApp platform for that client where my team and the client team are in the same group, right? So while we were doing all of this paperwork, internal processes, trying to analyze and come to RCA, the client should have been informed, whether informally or casually. There must be a way to inform that something has happened. Are we together? We shouldn't finish the documentation first. Yes. In this particular case, and I felt so bad. In fact, this last week was really a sad week for me. One of the users of the facility had a cut on the face. They tried to use, there's a shelf, try to get something on the shelf or something, and the shelf fell down, and she had a cut on the face, right? And so the FM did everything, first aid, treatment, all the things to calm her down, and everything was working fine, and the investigation and the remediation of work to make sure that the other cupboards are all fixed, were all being done. But when she went to their head office, many days after the incident, she saw the head of FM and said, "So if I had died, this is how you will not even call me to say, how am I faring?" And the guy was completely deflated. So in coming to me to report, why did you hold this back from me? I didn't have an excuse. In fact, I just said, you know what, punish me all you want. And I goofed. It's not something that we allow, because I had concluded that the FM had informed the team immediately that happened, especially their staff that got affected, right? So please, let's not finish dealing with the issues before we share relevant information. Are we together? Let's not finish dealing with the issue before we share relevant information, okay? Thank you, Ngozi, for that. All right, so many of us seem to have this consciousness of health and safety, and we seem to be aware that it's our accountability to maintain health and safety in our environment. Who amongst us have not experienced an incident in his workplace since you've been working? That question would likely be yes, you have not, if you are so new that you don't have any experience. If you've had experience in FM, you've had some incidents, recordable incidents for that matter. So why do we still have negative occurrences in our workplaces with all of this emphasis and training on health and safety? That's my question for you. Why do we still have incidences? Yes, Emmanuel Igbaba, please go ahead.
Okay. So why I believe such things still happens, even with knowing safety and all, I think it boils down to complacency. People become complacent with their actions with time. They feel like, okay, we've been doing this for a long time. We know how it goes. We can do without this. Let's just go on. And that incidents happen.
Exactly. So complacency actually leads to bypassing processes and ignoring activities that are safety activities that should have been performed before an operations activity. So that's a human factor, isn't it? Anything else? Yes, Victor, go ahead.
Okay, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
All right. I just wanted to add to it, like, in the place of law, action of law, if there is a tight law, and when it regards safety, at least it's to help the company and the ones in charge of the safety to be more aggressive when it comes to safety and everything.
So when you say law, what do you mean?
Like in maybe punishment for those that are involved in using substandard maybe PPEs, or maybe not wearing safety boots, like probably cutting their salary or punishment for something like that, sir.
Okay, so there must be penalties. We call it consequence management, right? Don't have policies and regulations that there are no consequences for. If there are no consequences, nobody will take them seriously. I think that's a good one, Victor. Yes? Yes, Tom.
The question is, why do we still have accidents or incidents in the workplace?
Yes.
Even after you've done everything and set up all your controls and barriers. And to answer this question, the point is, we have come to the realization that safety is not static, it's dynamic. So we have to maintain a state of continuous awareness. In fact, we are migrating into talking about dynamic risk assessment. That even at the point that you have set up your controls and barriers, you still have the uneasiness that things can still go wrong. So you are sort of preempting what could go wrong and setting up barriers. So where you neglect this dynamism, you find that you'll be taken unawares. So the facility manager has to preempt what could go wrong and then begin to, we call it now, and I come to understand this term from this course, predictive maintenance. All right, so you have to predict what could happen and then take steps, to mitigate. Otherwise, you'll be taken unawares. So why incidents still happen is because a lot of persons assume that safety is static. So you have all your controls and you forget about that. Your controls can wear out. So leading to incidents. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that. So you're basically saying we should bring, not just leave all our controls we have put in place, we should have them in front of our mind and continuously revise and review our risk assessments and our controls because it's a dynamic situation we find in our operations. That's a good one. Wenye, please go ahead.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I think in this issue now of why do we still have incidents in sites, well, my contribution goes to negligence that may come from another person which we are not aware of the environment or what he has done. For instance, we had an issue that in a gas pipe, they closed a gas plant and along the pipe was leaking. So somebody was like, okay, let us tighten this after putting the gasket. But the tightening was not done well. And the engineers, they left. So now when the plant was on back, there was leakage, which led to fire outbreak. So in this, it's a negligence from the other party, and we are the ones suffering from it. Then also, poor assessment of risk is also that can lead to accidents. Because if, for instance, they say, don't enter a tank or don't go in any closed place without testing or assessing what happened there. You dare not just enter site just normally. You have to check, is there any object up? Is there any something that may fall on your head? Is there nails in the floor? Is there this? Is there that? So you have to check all those things. And when you just say, okay, this is it's a normal place, let's just go, nothing is happening.
Yeah.
My brother, you'll be disappointed.
So the second part of your solution is complacency, again, like was mentioned by Manuel. And then the first part is communication, right? So when one person is acting and his action will affect another person, communication did not happen between them, the next person can be exposed to a risk. Whereas the person who created the hazard or risk situation is fully aware of exactly of what's going on. Yes, you have a last one.
Then the next one is maybe overlooking studying of manual. You have to study. If there is a manual for a particular this on how to operate this, take your time to read it and understand. Then finally, act of God. Act of God can be at work. You can. It should be there because we are not the one that designed the world.
Okay.
It's God that designed it. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. The one about manuals is very important. Overconfidence can lead to issues. Somebody says, it's a little bit different from complacency. Complacency is you just overlook it, don't do it because you feel you've been doing it every day, right? But overconfidence is assuming you know, being too sure that you are doing it, whereas you are not. You have changed everything and you are not following the correct procedures. All right, thank you very much for that. And also the act of God, I can accept that. I'm not going to push it away. Let's hear from Chris.
Okay, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
What I actually want to say is that about confidence. I can do it. I've been doing it. It gives us a lot of negligence in being safe in doing job.
Very good.
I recorded similar incident and it's terrible. I know it's not directly under me. It's somebody who is an electrical person. He has been using electric cutting machine. He wrongly did it and he recorded an incident. He was cutting a floor to lay a pipe.
You before it gets to facility management. That's what we're going to be. That's the whole thing about today's class. Design build commissioning is about how property, real estate, facilities are for people, and facility managers represent people. And as such, there's a connection of the facility manager to every stage, and we're going to talk about them. So the first thing that happens. The planning is done usually by the owner, the sponsor, the investor, the ultimate decision maker. Planning is done to answer certain questions. Questions like, what need do we have? What problems do we have to solve? What opportunities are there that we must take advantage of? Those are questions that lead to investment decisions, right? And as soon as those questions are answered, then what should we build? How much, what kind of concept, because you're basically, in planning, you're trying to create a vision of what it is that you want. That property is clearly defined in terms of this is what we want to achieve and this is how we want to achieve it. What we want to achieve are the things that the opportunities, the need, the problems that we want to solve, right? So we're now beginning to ask questions. How much of that space should we have? How big? What kind of facility should it be? And so on and so forth. At the end of planning, you would have come up with what type of facility, where it should be located,
Mr. Paul, we have lost you.
in this class. Okay, let me switch in time. I'm just going to switch my internet source. Okay, are you still seeing my screen?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
And my
Yes,
audio is better now, right?
Yes.
Yes, it is. It is.
Okay. So maybe I will give this other network a better chance to run this class. Okay. So what comes out of planning is a brief. Usually when you come out of planning with this brief, that brief in project parlance is called a project objective statement. And then with that planning, you also produce an approval. So a brief and an approval. The brief describes all the deliverables, how they are going to meet all the needs, solve all the problems. It also describes how the scope or boundaries of each deliverable and the total project scope, right? And then the approval, we call that brief, the objective statements. And then you have the approval. The approval is the financial commitment to start that project. It itemizes, it refers to the objective statements of deliverables. It's more like a business case. It has some risk analysis done in there, but mainly it is an approval document. Documents the key stakeholders, documents the key project team members, and then people that are supposed to approve for funding to become available. So those two are the outputs from the planning stage. After planning is done, a design team is brought on board. Design team are usually made up of architects and engineers. Their job is to translate, interpret the brief and translate it into visuals and data and documentation that people can see that that brief is feasible, can be built, can become reality. Okay, so this is the part where we say whatever was conceived in the defined phase of planning is now being created in spirit, if you borrow that word, right? Because you are going to create it in visuals. And what do you do at this stage? You're basically going to create what we call programming. Programming is a process of acquiring user requirements, where you look at all of the different departments, you take care of adjacency in terms of which department or unit should be close to which, how does flow of various stakeholders need to move within the organization, right? And then you do a survey on requirements for every work type and requirements for every user level or hierarchy within the organization. You come up with a spreadsheet on all the spaces that are required, including the future expansion spaces. With this, you go into schematics where you do bubble diagrams and stacking plans and some of those single line drawings that just show relationship, that can show size ratios to each other, and so on and so forth. And then from there, there's an iterative process for design development where we agree that the flow is right. When you start developing it, we'll now start coming to say, this is big enough, that's not big enough. We don't think that this transition space is going to be enough. You know, we'll have that back and forth. So design is not something that is produced and delivered. It's iterative, is back and forth, is continuous interaction until you come up with a design. Now, because you are creating the design, at the same time you have engineers and architects working together on the design, they also have, these same consultants are working on producing documentation of material specifications and work methods. So they are building a bill of quantities. So the design is an output from this process. The bills of quantities that translates that design into materials and work methods that will come together to, you know, actualize that design comes out as a bill of quantities, and then you now have the contracting document. The contracting document refers to both the drawings, the design, and the bills of quantities. That's how that process is concluded. As soon as that process is done, you now have the actual construction. During construction, another set of design work goes on. We call them construction drawings. So it's not that once you've done design, you have all your drawings. That's the end. No. Another round of drawings take place. Workshop drawing, construction drawings take place to try to add detail, try to blow up, try to explain certain things that were not too explicit to that level of granularity at the design phase, right? And at that point, you are also watching the construction specification, which is coming from the bills of quantities, and also the contract documents for all the compliance issues. And as you are using these documents, the design, construction documents, and the contract documents, bill of quantities and contract documents, all form the construction documents, you are watching for variation. You are watching for variations, you are trying to manage variations, and you are trying to stick to a plan that has been agreed to from the onset. So that's basically what you are doing during the construction phase. And as part of that process, every time there is a requirement for a change or a variation, documentation of how that variation was analyzed, how it will impact on other aspects of the project and the organization, and then whatever is approved, how that approval was arrived at, what analysis was done to lead to that approval. And then as soon as the approval happens, documentation is updated. Because during construction, you have a project management plan created during the construction phase. And every time there is a change, there's a variation, the plan is updated. Construction drawings that you are creating, if there's any change, needs to be updated to show the difference between the construction drawings and the design, what's being built versus what was designed. And your bills of quantities are updated. All the risk and everything that goes on during construction is careful documentation. What comes out of construction? Two key things. One, all of the deliverables. Now, this is our reality. It has been built. We now have what we hoped for. right? That's what comes out of it. So that's one. Then the other thing that comes out of construction, which is very critical, is documentation. Documentation. At this point, let's take drawings, for example. You must have gone through a set of design drawing and a set of construction drawings. That's what comes out of here. You now have bills of quantities with all the amendments. That's also output from here. All of those deliverables, job completions, and snag lists, and all of those things that goes with construction are also presented as documentation. And then you expect that you now have enough documentation to go to testing. What is testing? Testing is a process of checking for functionality for a built or installed building component or system. Functionality. What is functionality? For every system, equipment, or structural elements, there are parameters. Parameters that have a range, right? So if you have air conditioners, for example, or a central air conditioning system, there are certain parameters that will show that that system is working. The current, for example, that you should be drawing should not be below this, should not be above that. The vibration level should not be below this and above that. The noise level should be this and that. The cooling temperature that it can bring out in terms of range of cooling must be between this and that. So the whole idea is the process of designing what needs to be installed also defines and design the operating parameters with which you will do your testing. If you relate this to your laboratory tests, when you go to see a doctor and they say, oh, go and do a test, you will see that template. The template says, this is the organ or the system of the body. This is what we are checking for. This operating parameter usually is supposed to be within this range and that range for male, and between this range and that range for female. Those are operating parameters. If your test result shows that you are within those parameters, it means you are okay. There's no problem. If it's outside, then definitely there's a problem that needs attention. So basically, that's what testing is. So there's supposed to be templates produced for performing tests of installed equipment and building components. And testing can apply to virtually everything. For example, a civil structural element like a stairwell can be tested for strength and stability using various structural testing systems or tools. We can all relate with testing for electrical and mechanical and plumbing systems. If you flush a toilet and it flushes, water comes out and runs through and it does not leak, then of course it's tested. You know, testing is about if this is how it should run, is it actually running? How is it running compared to how it should run? That's testing. Documentation. We establish our baseline and then we move into commission test for functionality. Commission quiz about operating parameters, upper and lower, how that asset is meeting the needs of its users. That's what commissioning does. So in essence, if I'm testing a generator, I put it on, it supplies electricity. Even if it's just a laptop that I plug to it, it supplies electricity. If I test the vibration, the sound level and all of that, I put my test results down, right? But if I want to commission that same generator, I'll have to ask how much kilowatts. Okay, that's fine. So or maybe 90% of that, some safe measure, and run it over hours, whether this equipment can hold that load or take care of that pressure. And you document your stairwell in a high rise is supposed to evacuate 1,000 people from every floor. And it means that there's a capacity, it's designed for a capacity to accommodate from first floor, you're talking about 9,000, 8,000, 7,000, 6,000, all the way down to. The idea is, if we all have an emergency and we all have to come down from that building, how will that step? We have to simulate that evacuation and then record how many got injured, how many got bruises, how many didn't feel their shoes on their way, how many railings fell off, and so on and so forth. You're just taking information to find out if that stairwell is adequate. That's commissioning. You document your findings. Commissioning gives you what we call your facility baseline. So as facility managers, you're coming to take over a brand facility baseline information that tells you what is the current condition of my facility at this point. The handover phase. What is handover? I've seen all kinds of handover in my career. There are handovers of building by shaking hands and taking pictures together. There are handovers, but handover in facility management is documents. Documents. Every construction that is well done, the handover is documentation that helps you to manage that asset in a sustainable manner. So if you've been given keys and you move into the facility and somebody says, oh, well, there are no documentation, just learn what you can learn and start managing it, that facility is doomed from the beginning. So handover is documentation. I'm going to look at documentation that are required, from all of this. The notion that comes out of design should be available. Planning, design. I'm sure we'll never talk about those documents that come out of construction. We have as and construction drawing. There are two sets of drawings that come out of construction. The construction drawings are more like working drawings while we're still trying to interpret the design. But as built drawings are measured drawings. You go back to measure what was actually built and you document. You have the as built of quantities. They all come out of construction process. And then the testing records are added to that, the commissioning records are added to that, and all of them form the documentation that goes into handover. One other document I didn't mention from the construction phase is the operations and maintenance manuals. Those ones also need to come out of that phase, and you hand all of them over. And the handover process is a process of validating documentation, ascertaining what's been documented, comparing what's been documented versus what's on ground, establishing the gap, and ensuring that you have all the information you need to get into facility management. For facility management, of course, you put the contracts in place, or you develop service level agreements, you develop an FM framework, you develop your SOPs, because now you have all the information, and then you start running the facility until the time when it will be due for replacement, to be retired, and then you decide to demolish it or do whatever disposal method that's more suitable at that point. So this is the development cycle in a nutshell. So what we're trying to learn today is about operational readiness. The process, for developing a system for seamless transfer of a building from construction into a full operation in a structured manner to an agreed program. Typically, what you'll find in traditional construction businesses and developers, what they do is the design is done. Another team comes, pick up the design and go and build. Building is done. Another team comes, pick up the drawings and the specification documentation and go and carry out commissioning. And then the FM teams come and run the place. That's basically the traditional model. But professional practice has evolved. We're supposed to run the development cycle using the operational readiness program and work as a team. The planning, the design, the construction, and the facilities team have a way of sharing information, having handshakes, coming back to interact and have inputs in each other's phases during that development cycle. So at the planning stage, the planning team is driving. Who makes the planning team? Most likely the owners, the investors, and some consultants. But who has an input? The guys that are going to build the project team, the construction team, and the FM. Same for the design stage. But what does the FM contribute to planning? Because if you understand this one slide, what are the inputs from a facility manager to planning? It will make a lot of difference in how you carry yourself, what kind of research you do, what kind of analysis you come up with, and what kind of value you add to your organization. The FM at this point comes with one critical knowledge: the knowledge and experience of the building users. Whether you are expanding or you're creating a new space, you have experienced the people that are going to come in to use this new space. That experience will add value to a lot of decisions that will be taken at the planning stage. How big, for example, how much of conveniences, utility provisions, sites, infrastructure that need to be in place, services that need to be considered while designing. All these are done during planning stage. And the FM contributes all of this information. During design stage, programming is done by the design team, but the FM is the one who is representing all the users that will be observed and will be surveyed. And so the FM is at the heart of programming. The FM also contributes a lot of information regarding maintainability considerations, sustainability considerations during design. Things like access points for inspections, chambers to see how things are working within the building, so you don't get everything sealed up and you don't have access, for example. Maintenance access, maintenance process and procedures. Things like how to replace, upgrade, repair. What considerations would there be for the future? The FM understands what we call the degradation curve. When an asset is built, there is usually that this is how good it is in terms of quality and grade. Over time, as you're using the assets, the quality or grade depreciates over time. So if you have the FM who's experienced facilities, manage 5 years old facility, 20 years old facility, you will know what happens to PVC pipes, for example, after many years. You will know what happens to cables after many years. You know what happens to certain types of materials used as doors for wet areas versus dry areas, and so on and so forth. The FM's advice during the design phase is critical to getting the right flow of spaces, the right types of spaces, the right consideration for services that need to be built into the spaces, all the maintenance considerations that need to come in there, and long-term sustainability of the assets. When it's time to replace this German technology you are building into this central air conditioning system, I hope we'll have the spare parts in Nigeria, for example, and things like that. You contribute all of that at the design stage. All of those aesthetic considerations that designers usually have when developing your elevations and creating all of those fanciful concrete molds here and there, the FM needs to ask simple questions like, will that ceiling need to be cleaned? Will that glass wall need to be cleaned? How are we going to assess it? And so on and so forth. At the construction phase, what do you do? The work has been commissioned, workers are working. You know that whenever there is the slightest opportunity for variation, a project team will find the path of least resistance, because their objectives are always the same. Time, which is work to schedule, cost, work to budget, and scope, work to specifications as defined. All circumcised under quality, like you might have heard from the project management class. But when they meet an obstacle, when they need to make a change, they will use these objectives to do the analysis. Can we change to this so that we can still build quickly and deliver on time? Can we spend a little more money so that we can deliver on time? Can we add more resources? Change this particular task from this specialist to another specialist so we can get it done cheaper, for example. They make all those decisions. But what will mostly be missing during variations and change order management during construction is the user, the end user's considerations. Nobody represents the end user at that point. So they run AC drains through some forbidden parts that are buried in the wall, for example. And they have 90-degree bends here and there. And they have incomplete over. The FM's job is to help represent two critical stakeholders during construction when variation analysis is taking place. One is the owner. The ultimate objective of the owner should not be allowed to be overridden during considerations for how to surmount obstacles on site. And two, the end users. Of course, your own concern about them not building something that you cannot manage is key, but you're being able to manage it is to provide value for these two key stakeholders, which will often be missing on the table when discussions about such variations and changes are taking place. And that's saying that if you are not on the table seated, you are in the menu comes to play in this instance. Because everybody on the project team wants to deliver quickly and they want to get out. The users, the owner, represented by the FM, ensures that the users and the owner are protected during these change considerations. So whenever the analysis are going to skip considerations for the end user, consideration for the owner, asset preservation, and consideration for operational readiness and maintenance and maintainability issues, the FM should be there. Secondly, why the FM should have and input during the construction project process is not just to contribute to those analyses, but also to ensure that the appropriate documentation is being cataloged for him. Because at some point, you are going to be saddled with that facility to manage. And if you're going to be saddled with that facility to manage, then by all means, influence the kind of documentation that is going to be released to you. If the documentation is wishy-washy, missing information, and you are not able to work with it or do the best out of it, you will be a failed facility manager. So during construction, apart from variation analysis, then proper documentation is what the FM does. And finally, the FM needs to contribute to all of those quality control and quality assurance tasks. For example, a deliverable that is being declared completed and ready to hand over should have a representative of the owner and the user, who is the FM, be on ground to say, yes, this is a proper, complete deliverable. I don't still see the sense in allowing the same project manager who manages contractors and consultants, who will leave immediately the project is completed, to be the one signing completion certificates for what has been done well. There should be the owner's representative, who should be the facility manager, who is going to take over that project on behalf of the owner, not the project manager who is ad hoc, done and gone on behalf of the owner. But secondly, another reason why that practice should allow the FM do the receiving and validation of deliverables is that from the project manager to the consultants to the contractors, they all get rewarded based on the same milestones. Is this milestone complete? Everybody gets paid. If the next one complete, everybody gets paid. Nobody will play the devil's advocate. Nobody will represent the owner and the users when they know that such representation will cause delays to closing out the milestones that will pay and reward everybody on the project. So every time I hear of owners saying things like, oh, we have hired consultants who are representing our interests, everything is going well, I just laugh. And I say, if you have the model that payments will go to those consultants based on what was accomplished by the contractors, they will all go to bed together. Because every time I'm becoming a stumbling block doing quality checks on the milestone deliverable, I'm also holding back my own consultancy fee. If that is what you're doing in the industry, my dear, forget it. Those consultants don't represent you. So you end up with an entire team who are representing themselves and the project objectives, which is to deliver it quickly, cheaply, and within scope and get out. So without the FM at that stage, even if you don't have a facility manager because there's no facilities to maintain yet or run yet, you need to have a facility management consultant in the team. So when you get a mechanical consultant, electrical consultant, an architectural consultant, you also need to have a facility management consultant on that team. He is the one that is going to ask some of those questions that are almost like ignorant questions that will get everybody thinking about the owner and the end user. During testing, the FM's inputs is basically to ensure that the proper operating parameters are being tested for. The tests are done according to procedures and documentation, because that's what you want to get out of it. It's proper. Documentation is proper. I can get that out. Commissioning, the same thing. I am going to be the one to face the building users and the owner. The value of this entire development depends on how building users and the owners get satisfaction. Commissioning is to check for that adequacy. I need to be at the forefront of commissioning. I need to be gathering all the data that the commissioning efforts is producing, because those are the data that will form my baseline for managing that facility in the future. And then when it's time to hand over, I receive all of those documentation. But the documentation I'm going to receive at handover, I have already influenced them during planning and design and contracting stage. The way various consultants are supposed to produce their documentation have already been influenced because I had inputs at each of those 2 phases. And then when you hand over the facility to me, I become the driver. Facility manager takes over and starts driving. At this point, the facility is all but ready, and you are now supposed to give value to the owner and the building users. How do you do this? The FM framework, all the strategic planning that needs to go into it, all of the documentation and processes for running facilities, you put them in place. Contracting if you have to contract out, and so on and so forth. But all of these things you will do at the FM stage have already been made easy by proper operational readiness, proper documentation from phase to phase till the time of facility management. At this point, everything has been created in spirit. Your FM work is just a physical manifestation because you fully understand everything is well documented and the facility is pretty much in good shape. So all I have said as the FM's contribution during various stages is what you have in the slides. I'm just going to highlight a few of them. During design stage, review the owner's project requirements and basis of design documentation for clarity and completeness. You are representing the owner. You were part of developing the brief. So when the architects and engineers are developing the design documentation, your job is to ensure that the project requirement of the owner is complete, is clear, is captured in the design. And then ensure that quality is managed because it's built into the entire contracting and construction process. Monitor commissioning team, quality assurance staff of the main contractors and project teams, hold pre-mobilization meeting. This is an owner's task that you're performing. So this is a very key input for the facility manager. Participate in quality management and commissioning meetings, perform focus reviews of the design, drawings, and specifications at various stages. Every time there's going to be a review or a fresh analysis or new construction that come in, be involved, assist and review the development and updating of the owner's project requirements and basis of design team members after each review. So every time there's a review, all changes, all considerations must be aligned back to what the owner had in mind. And it's your job to ensure that this happens. And then contract documents that are issued out, ensure that quality assurance and commissioning specifications are adequate. Because if you go at the end of the contract and start shouting, oh, you didn't do as-built drawings, did you provide for it in the contract in the first place? You didn't do your commissioning properly, did you specify? So at this point, I'm going to read the contract documents and say, okay, have we captured this? Have we captured that? Because I want everything specifically itemized. There are sometimes you see a contract document where you have that lump sum amount. They say this is for contingencies or this is for miscellaneous. I see that frequently, right? The FM's job is to ensure that all those important things that you should have as quality and operational readiness should not be lumped up as miscellaneous. They should be itemized and broken down and costed as part of the project. Coordinate commissioning specifications with the architects and engineers and integrate into overall project specification package. Participate in value engineering and management reviews and make recommendations to resolve potential problems. Value engineering is a process of defining how you are making progress from stage to stage in a construction project, where you analyze your schedule as planned versus what you have achieved at a point in time. The same thing for cost. So if you are doing schedule and cost analysis to confirm how much value has been created out of the project, we call that value engineering. Is discussion, so all of those discussion around how much has been done, how much should have been paid, should be paid to the contractor and things like that, should have the owner's inputs. Participate in review test procedures, write-ups, and documentation produced by consulting engineers. So all of those test procedures, I said, the test team must have a template with all those parameters. Make sure that you are familiar with those. Set up the procedures for operations, operational readiness, program implementation, and integrate into the contract. All that will go into operational readiness, all of those documentations need to be prepared in the formats that they will be useful, needs to be incorporated into the contracts for construction. During construction stage, the FM ensures that the quality assurance and commissioning activities are carried out in a logical, sequential, and efficient manner. They work with the main contractor to incorporate commissioning activities into the master schedule, revise as necessary the construction phase commissioning plan developed during design, including the scope and the schedule that you committed to at the beginning of the project. Plan and conduct quality assurance and commissioning meetings. We have construction meetings, all of those meetings for correlating the various aspects of the construction. Quality assurance and commissioning usually takes place during those meetings. Sometimes some sites will have a separate range of meetings for milestone commissioning activities. Site visits for inspections to observe how things are being installed is also very key. Because if you don't, you might not know what's been buried. You might not know what challenges they felt, they suffered on site, and how they solved those problems. Those problems can come back to haunt you later. Review construction meeting minutes for revisions and substitutions relating to the commissioning process. Attend selected planning and job site meetings to obtain information on construction progress. Be involved in commissioning tasks, including operational and maintenance manual documentation, contractor mobilization, and closeout procedures for each project deliverable. Work with design and construction teams to review submittals applicable to systems being commissioned for compliance with commissioning needs. So basically, you are involved in construction to ensure that what was intended is actually being built. Documentation, all the records. If a system is being built, equipment is being installed, the O&M manuals need to be produced or provided. Quality checklists when you are commissioning and receiving the deliverable at the end of the day. Construction checklists by the various construction team members. Coordinate and witness. And then the master issues log. When issues crop up during construction, you need to know how they solve those issues, because if those issues come up again tomorrow, you should know what happened before and how they were resolved, and how you can gain insight from that information. Provide progress reports and test results with recommended actions. Review equipment warranties to ensure that client responsibilities are clearly defined. Some people actually lose their warranties during construction. A major deliverable is brought in, there are certain conditions that are spelled out in the warranty documentation that might void your warranty, and you don't know. Probably that's the first thing you do when you take over the facility. You void the warranty without knowing. And then ensure that training takes place. You see all those talk of, okay, this contractor did this job, instead of letting them go, let them leave a few workers who are going to work with us so that we can fully implement what we need to implement in our operations, because they know. All that they know should be documented and handed over, and then they should go. That's it. All that they know should be documented and handed over, and then they should go. But before they go, all that documentation will become the basis for training of the operations team. Otherwise, you will now be obliged to have construction people stay back, hold you to ransom, become FMs in the process. Okay? Review the operation of the O&M manuals for commercial equipment and the building components. After construction, of course, the FM is taking over, represent the client in supervising required action during defect liability and efficiency corrections period. You know, that's to fix any defects that might Okay, how about now? Is it better now?
Very well, sir.
Okay. My screen is still showing, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But there's this bar that is always covering some parts of this of the slide. I don't know whether it's from the presentation style or something. There's a dark bar.
Now the bar is here at the top or at the bottom right now?
Yes, that's where it is right now.
Both.
Yeah, it's both.
Yeah, it's a Zoom bar. I'm trying to. I'm trying to. That's the Zoom controls bar and the class and the class participant view. I minimize one into a bar and put it at the bottom. That's the participant's view. And I try to push it away from the content. And then I put the control bar at the top.
I think it's all right like this.
And I also try to move it away from the content. Okay.
It's all right now.
Okay. All right, great. Now, once construction and handing over is taking place, you monitor defect liability issues. It doesn't make sense having all of those issues materialize or show up later when contractor and construction team, project team has all been paid and settled and they've all gone. So your inspections and audits and checks should be more rigorous during defect liability. And then you also know that there is warranty monitoring. There's a warranty period. You need to put program in place to ensure that warranty does not become voided. And if something comes up that needs to activate warranty, you apply for that activation as quickly as possible. And then you take care of FM service providers, draw up FM framework, and then pre-qualification for service providers. You bid out the job if you have to bid out the job. Recruit staff if you have to recruit staff to do it in-house. You know, but of course, it's all based on the service level agreement that you've agreed with the owner and the building users. Monitor warranty compliance, identify and solve problems or concerns with operating the building as originally intended, make suggestions for improvements and for recording these changes in the O&M manuals, identify areas that may come under warranty or under the original construction contract, assist facility staff in developing reports and documents and requests for services to remedy outstanding problems, provide effective operations and maintenance of building systems, and provide effective occupant services. This is you now doing your FM work. So we talked about documents, things that you must have in place. And we're going to talk about those that will come out of construction. But sometimes you're not taking a fresh construction. It could be an old building. It could be historically used by organization or by other organizations. You could have moved in there as tenant or whatever. The FM should have a basic startup information for you to manage any sites. List of vendors, the contracts existing, lease agreements, landlord details, financial data, historical data, utility and energy consumption bills, accounting requirements, IT requirements, organizational charts, talking about the people who use the facility now, site information including drawings, bills of quantities of as builds, service level requirements, kind of services you need to provide and what level those services should be delivered to, equipment list, your asset register, maintenance records, historical maintenance records, building rules and regulations, permits, there are licenses for different aspects of your facility, having them in place, key contacts, emergency numbers, whether for repair or call out or for government reporting of issues, incident reporting procedures, emergency response plans. You have to prepare for emergency. So there must be some kind of planning information on how emergency will be responded to, and the business continuity requirements, fire life safety plans. These are basic documentation that you should have in place as a facility manager. Okay, so to have all of this, we talk about operational readiness as the tool that we should use. And you cannot have all of this documentation presented to you in all the way construction runs right now. All the consultants work in different formats. They work in different environments. They deliver, information in the way they feel like. You're trying to create an asset register, but you have to open a CD for mechanical items. You have to open a folder to look at architectural features and so on and so forth. You don't have any comprehensive way of, getting the information that you need. And that's a problem that is making operational readiness a big issue for us. You are unable to properly set up a plant maintenance program. You're unable to find essential documentation. Everything is unstructured. All the documentation that was given to you and how you handed over the facility is just in a haphazard manner. I've had a project handed over to me where well, I wasn't handed over the project. I was asked to come and manage it after it was fully delivered. And then I was now looking for certain drawings. We had a booster pump that goes from the utility plant room, pumps water through. It's actually a fire hydrant line into an auxiliary building that is up on the hill on the site. Okay, and we had a problem with that line because every time the line is pressurized, there are leakages in multiple locations. So we needed to find out, trace that pipe, and we started looking for drawings. You wouldn't believe it took 2 weeks to get several optional drawings, and all of the drawings pointed to the fact that the pipe came out of the utility building, ran through the back to the fence, and run under the fence or parallel to the fence before going into that auxiliary building. And then we started digging, nothing. By the time we finally came through, after digging all around that utility building, we finally saw that the pipe came right down into that building, was buried, and it went under the facility management building and under another building and under a large palm trees, like a garden reserve area before it got into that other building. And after spending almost a month of effort, and so many people pouring through drawings and digging and cutting all over the place, we ended up bypassing that line. We had to run another line as was originally intended through the fence and up the hill to that other building. But that was a time waster, and a lot of money that shouldn't have been spent was spent just trying to deal with nuisance of documentation. So if you have the proper operational readiness program in place, everything will be organized in a structured way. This agreement on how documents will be compiled, how deliverables will be released, will be agreed to in the design phase, not during construction. So that's where the discussion needs to happen. So if you are not there, you are not ever going to be able to participate in contributing to what the final deliverable should be. So the FM should work his way up to strategic levels to be able to provide analysis on his or her value to the organization to get a chance at being able to contribute to discussions at that level before a project actually commences. And the solution, an operation and maintenance program, a testing and commissioning program, and a handover program, which are made up of a set of documents that you will need to have in place. And I'm going to go first to them. So the O&M manual. This program is where you document your assets, parts, spares, all specifications of. So this is what you extract your asset register from. Your entire maintenance plan come out of here because we have operating manuals and you have maintenance schedules, all built into this particular program. So the mechanical engineers who are going to be consultants on that project have to use your mechanical requirements, data required of all the assets to define how the contractor is going to provide information. Same with electrical and structural and everybody. They have to make sure that these documents are available to you as an FM. And then you have the testing and commissioning, which produces its own set of documentation, right? As build drawings, bills of quantities, snag lists, GIS coordinates, vendor details, guarantees and warranties, manufacturer recommendations, legal documentation, design modifications, and information. All of these are things you need to be able to, assemble a proper testing and commissioning, because these are the documents that are generated as the project is being developed. For example, you have this large diesel tank that you require a permit to run, or you have a sewage plant that requires an environmental assessment report or a permit to run. All of those things will be, so when you're going to do testing and commissioning, you're not just saying, switch it on, look at it. No, there's a documentation aspect, and then there's the testing and commissioning, which is a combination of all of the information that went into that asset development and shows that that asset can meet the needs for which it was designed and built. And then you have the handover. Defines when the contract is finished, where the owner finally signs that this project is completed, is part of this. Regulatory document, warranty document, defects list, training record. This is where you actually make sure that it's a proper handover. You're not only asking for manuals as build drawings, as build bills of quantities and test results. You are also ensuring that people are trained. You and your team get proper training from those. You don't need to be in a position where you have to go and start looking for people who built to come back and run it. Otherwise, the profession will not exist. If you do this process very well, you will be able to run it independently of those who built. So I'm going to go back and share with you some very salient slides that I glossed over and moved through. If operational readiness is considered and thought through from the onset, you realize that it's more like a penny wise. Okay, we say penny wise, pound foolish, right? Construction is a small part of overall total cost or life cycle cost. In a 55-year life cycle for a typical corporate headquarters, 10% is what was spent on original design and construction. Capital renewals and upgrades will cost 28% over that 55 years. And operations and maintenance, including energy costs and personnel costs, will be 62%. So this particular chart is supposed to help you communicate when you get all of that. No, don't bring that up. It's going to cost us more money. You know, it's a matter of when do you want to spend this money and how much of it do you want to spend. If you want to spend a little now and spend a lot over a long period later, feel free, ignore operational readiness. If you want to prevent that cost wastage in the future by doing a little extra now, then you're welcome. That's basically the value proposition here. As an FM, you should have basic information at your fingertips to run or manage any facility. We talked about design build commissioning as part of taking over a new construction. But ladies and gentlemen, we are involved in managing all the buildings that exist, not just the new ones. If we were to put a ratio to old buildings versus new upcoming buildings, it would be 95 to 5%. So we're going to manage all the existing buildings, and even the new buildings that we're learning how to take over and run with operational readiness will over time become old buildings, and we'll still need to manage them. The basic data that you must have at your fingertip to manage any kind of facility is what you have on this sheet. There are about 2 or so slides that will present this information. Business requirements, understand the organization, business drivers, the needs, the constraints, and plan changes. All those expense and footprint reduction targets, IT plans, and so on. You must know the sites, the physical facilities that you are in charge of, square footage, addresses, number and types of occupants, owned versus leased, hours of operation, types of space, operations, customers are being served. You need to have a good overview of what the site is and who uses the site, who you're serving. And then what services do you provide? Are they contracted? Are they in-house? Are they outsourced? What about the team you use to provide the services? What gaps exist between the services you're providing now and what the customer expects? Statement of works, service level considerations for every service category. And then costs. All the services you provide from year to year, how much do they cost? Not just absolute cost, but cost in metric form. Cost per person, cost per square meter, cost per kilowatt hour, and so on and so forth. Cost per unit basis. And then performance. If I'm providing these services, how do I evaluate my impact, the impact of my facility services on my organization? That is key performance indicators. If I'm cleaning well, for example, are people also falling sick in the building? Because if I'm cleaning well, people should be healthier. If I'm ventilating my space properly and I'm providing proper cooling, people should complain less, which means they should be more productive because they're spending their time working and doing good, delivering good results. And what are the issues? Compliance issues, union issues, community issues. I need to be abreast. There's no need to bury my head in the sand like an ostrich and come out to say, it's not my fault. Those are external factors that affect how I perform my services. All right, so that's our class for today. I would like you to ask questions. There's an assessment that goes with this class. I know you have the link to do it. I've noticed that a few people are beginning to owe their assignments and assessments. Please don't do it. A few of you are beginning to do that. Some of you are already owing 2 or 3. Let me even ask that question so you can tell me by yourself. Who is owing an assignment or an assessment in this class? Show by the raise of hand. Put your hand down if you wanted to ask question before. Let's deal with this issue first. Who is owing an assessment or an assignment in this class? And I said 2 or 3. This matter is serious. Emmanuel E, how many?
I'm actually not owing. I was trying to ask a question. Sorry about that. I'm trying to put down my hand.
So let's put your hand down. Thank you.
Okay.
This is scary what I'm seeing. Chimeze, how many?
Mine is about 3, sir.
No way. Kingsley, what about you?
Mine is about 2. The last class and one other class when I was not feeling fine.
Today makes it 3. Amen.
Yes, sir. About 3.
Even you. Chris.
Okay, mine is just 1, the HSC, which I think I'll submit it today.
Fantastic. Victor.
3, sir.
How many?
3.
Nah, no way, Victor. No way. I
I'm
wouldn't have said that.
2 also.
Make sure you tidy it up this weekend. By Monday, Tuesday, get everything done, please. I know that you have a pressured environment, but please don't pile it up. Taufik, how many?
Also, sir.
The HSC, okay. Daniel.
I think it's 2.
But you were not owing before. When you just start owing this one, which ones are you owing?
Well, I'm owing on the safety and the previous class, electrical, I think.
So I want to ask, if you are not able to do your assignment before the next class, will you still be able to submit that same assignment even when it has elapsed? When the time has elapsed?
You will be able to submit. So don't worry. Go ahead and submit. Okay. I encourage you not to pile it up. Please don't pile it up. Chinere, how many?
It's about 3. They've actually been done. My problem usually, the challenge I have is getting the name of the lecturers. So I just
no, that's not a problem. We'll just don't just ask the question on the chat on the group, or type Barakat a question.
Yes, I've been doing that with Barakat. I've just been doing that. I'm going to submit. The 3 have actually been done. It's just to submit them.
All right, great. Thank you. Razak, how many?
3, sir.
Wow. Temi?
But I'm working on them now. I'll get them done Monday, Tuesday. Worst case.
Temi?
Yes,
all right. Temi?
2, sir. 2.
2. Okay. When?
Mine's 2.
Are they the latest 2? Because today makes it 3 now, right?
Yes.
Let me see.
2. Plus today will make it 3. Yes, sir.
Anthony?
Today's own is going to be 4, sir.
Wow. I didn't think I would hear 4 from anybody in this class. Okay. Let's try and tidy this up. Your work pressure is not going to drop, right? So please, let's tidy it up. I'm going to do this exercise again next week, Saturday, to see how many people have closed out all of their standing assessments, okay? Please. All right. So now you can raise your hand for productive discussion. Let's discuss this class. It's a very topical issue we've had today. So let's discuss how we're going to apply it, constraints and issues, whatever you think, you need us to discuss. Antonio, you can start. You are turning to separate from the class. Okay, let's hear from Emmanuel E. Go ahead, please.
Hello?
Yes, we are with you.
I do want to clarify that from the assessment that was there, it's not something we discussed in the class. So I don't know if it actually counts. Because like you said, they give all the manuals together, and hopefully we're still going to be discussing like fire safety and other things. So I don't know if that should be one of the assessments.
No. The assessment, every assessment, the answer is in the slides that you got.
No, I understand. Yes, okay. So that's what I'm saying. So since we had not yet discussed it, I felt that it was going to be after those final discussions.
On which one? The health and safety?
Yes.
No, there will be no other discussion. You are supposed to read that content and answer the assessment.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Okay, I got that. Okay, so my question with regards to today's lecture, it has to do with the information for startup. Like you just said, you said that 95% of the facility manager's job is going to be having to deal with old buildings. 5% is just new buildings. So I wanted to ask, which is the most, imagine you are actually taking up a facility management job in a facility and they don't have efficient implementation. There was no proper handing over, OMs were not available and all the rest as buildings were not available. And you want to start producing them. So I wanted to ask, where would you advise facility manager to start with? Where would you advise him to start from? Nothing is available. Nothing is okay.
Start with as build drawings.
Okay. I actually thought key performance in the key performance would be the most appropriate point because it tells you what is important.
See, when you want to start managing, yes,
okay,
right. But you need to know what you have. What's your raw material? What is the tool? What is it you are going to manage?
Okay.
Right. So as build drawings and asset register, condition assessments, then you get into the organization and start understanding, because it's at the point where you want to create a gap analysis between what you have and what you expect to deliver, that you now need to draw information on strategy and what the mission is going to run for you to create that gap analysis and then create a plan on how you're going to close that gap. So basic thing you do at the operational level is to understand what kind of facility you have in your hands to manage.
Okay, thank you very much.
Daniel.
Okay, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Well, honestly, I think the lecture so far has been very, very, very enjoyable, so to say. And I'm going to actually speak from a practical point of view. As usual, most of the lectures we do regarding buildings and or any other one actually, most times they appear to be just theoretical. And theoretical in the sense that I can assure you that with all these things you've said are as realistic as they seem to be. If the stakeholders and those at the management level, when it comes to design, building, operation, maintenance, commission, and the rest of it, if they are not knowledgeable about this effect itself, then everything we have said here, for them it does not matter. In fact, if you as an FM person who is aware, because even some of us as FM don't even know these things, these things are actually. If you bring up some of these items and talk, it may even cost you your job. Let me give you an instance.
Okay.
Personally, for me, I've been privileged enough to have been doing this for about over 10 years actually. And then there was this project in 2014 or so, 2013, 2014. That I involved in Awoya. If you're going to Awoya on your way to Ekpe, there is this resort, so sort of a resort that was built. It is called Fair Acres. Fair Acres Resort, just after Awoya. It's a resort where families and people go to a recreational resort. Do you know that the M&E person at some point designed reticulation or pipes that is supposed to be like a supply pipe around the view, around the structure? This guy advised for, imagine PPR pipes being in bed, inside sleeves, inside what appears to be like drainages around the whole building, and it is concealed.
Okay.
And we were like, Ross, what is this? What is the essence of this one? First of all, you're putting PPR pipes, about 3 inches PPR inside sleeves, and you're burying them in drainages that are concretized all around. So who does this maintenance? How do you want to do this maintenance? If your pipe is leaking, how do you want to know? You'll be seeing, you will just seeing water showing up somewhere. You would think that is the point, but I'm telling you, this will be running about 1 kilometer. Definitely. Inside the pipe. It's going to be from maybe 1 kilometer away. Yes. So we are like, it's even good enough. It's good enough that you're doing PPR alone. If you even bury it alone in the ground, it's okay. So that even when there is a problem, it will show immediately. But you're putting PPR inside sleeves and you're burying them inside concrete. Inside concrete. Wow. I'm like, but do you know that it took me almost 6 months of arguments and still nobody listened to me. Until I left that project, that thing was not changed. So it was later on that after some senior engineers came and like, they were like, this is a complete waste of resource and money. But then it has already been done. Okay, let me also tell you, because right now I'm actually in a real estate company. Can you imagine that somebody is building a hatch to the rooftop, and you are locating this hatch in the middle of a lift landing, in the middle of a lift on a supposed
landing,
highbrow estate, and then you're putting it in the middle of the landing. If the rain falls, in fact, and there is no ladder, there's not even ladder now that accesses that hatch. Yeah, because it's in the middle.
Wow.
So if somebody imagine a commissioner, or let's say somebody working in like we have somebody working in the presidency who has a unit in our place. Imagine he comes to his visitors and then you see somebody with a ladder in the middle of his apartment. I mean, these are things that you want to tell people to look at these designs by the time you invite people to look at these functionalities and tell you how this should be for people who are using these things. And everybody will be like, leave it, you're too savvy. So you see that it's already a practical problem for everybody.
All these things we are talking is not just theory. They are called best practices. We might be very far removed from best practice, but we need to learn them.
Okay.
Now, from where you are to best practice will be an evolutionary process. Will not be a revolutionary process.
Okay.
If you try revolution, you'll be seen as a rebel and you'll be kicked out, like you said, right? You need to use evolution, leadership, influence. Do you know sometimes what you know is going to be a maintenance nightmare? You don't just go out and pop it out. You ask questions. You understand? This line that is going in this place, how is it going to go to this place? Oh, okay. So if there's a leakage, is there a place where I can look at it? I get what I'm saying. You ask like a naive person because you are coming to an industry that's been entrenched for hundreds of years. FM is a new profession.
Okay.
You understand? So you're not coming to come and rub shoulders and make people feel you have arrived, you know everything more than them. They will fight back, and before you know what's happening, they will catch us in more of our ignorance than even the things we thought we knew. So we should play down, gently ask questions to get inputs from the people who are designing, and then work on the hearts and minds of these project team members so that they begin to reason like, oh, this is the reason we're actually doing this, the people who are going to use it. this is why we should have this consideration and that consideration. If you work with leadership, after a while, what's going to happen is that they'll begin to invite you to ask your opinion, because you are not going to be the one that's going to take the honor or the praise for making that change. You will not be running them down with your man and say, if not for me, they would have built this rubbish. I get what I'm saying.
Yes,
but beyond that, we as facility managers need to be able to articulate some analysis using objective numbers to show why what we are saying is correct. For example, you know, the maintenance and repairs you are currently doing in those old buildings, if you are not cataloging how pipes break and fail, for example, how certain things fall, how complaints from residents over intrusion of workmen into spaces, you know, how they cause nuisance in what you're currently doing. By the time they are doing a new design tomorrow, and you want to say this is wrong or this is not ideal, and you don't have data to support that position, you will not be making sense. It will be as if you just want to show himself again. It's true. This is my experience. So,
yes,
so anytime I know that I don't have data to show, for example, somebody has gone to paste split units all over a 5-story, 6-story building, all over the building. Outdoor units are hanging as if they use chewing gum to paste them on the wall. Who is going to maintain? Who is going to maintain them in those positions? There are no landing. There are no service landing on those floors, right? And then you want to build that finish and then hand it over to me to come and manage.
You're opening a business for scaffolders.
Exactly. So I'll ask a question. Bros, after building this, are you going to buy a permanent man lift or mechanical lift and put as part of the building? Or are you going to have a cradle installed? Because that's the only way all this pasting of ACs on the body will be run, right? So why don't we have some ledges here and there that somebody can actually come down from a window into a railed balcony
ledge or something,
or a ledge, yes, where something is placed and you can access it and then get back. Or why don't we, you know, options are there that can be considered, you know. But if you don't have that data to support, okay, if I do this maintenance every 3 months, I get a scaffold with it, and this is going to be the cost over 20 years, for example. And you put that on the table and say, look at how this particular decision is going to affect ongoing costs. It may even make some people not to buy. I've gone to properties they say they are selling. I'll look at the building from far. I won't come down from my car. They'll say, no, come and see. The place is very, I say, I'm not coming down. Let's live here.
No lead again, no lead.
Just from outside, I've seen the building. I say, I'm not buying it. Even if you give me a free property, I don't want it again, I'm going. But the people that built it and the people that are managing don't know what I saw. It was only once in Surulere, one lady, she called me back and said, I need to know exactly what influenced the decision not to even look inside to see the marble we have on the floor. She was so curious. I had to tell her, I said, look, you guys have provided maintenance nightmares because we're going to buy a unit in that building. When we buy a unit in that building, each person will be responsible for his own maintenance of his internal assets. And you have put those assets in public inaccessible places. How will I reach it? And that will lead to a lot of, you know, issues later and problems, and people will start cutting the wall to put window units, and so many things because they will just bypass it after a few years. They won't bother to go back there. They just bypass it. They just cut a hole in their wall and put window units and deface the whole building, and then the value of the property will go down. You know. So I explained all that, and she was really happy. But that's because I have the experience.
It's true.
That's because I have the experience. Okay, so we don't force it. We evolve gradually into it. Okay.
Okay, I agree. I agree. All
right. Thanks, Tafik.
Hello, sir. Yeah, I got regarding what Mr. Daniel just said. I think the issue is maybe because facility management is just spreading out. People don't know the impact of a facility manager, and you know, the construction team. the clients believe more in them because they will say, I've been doing this for the past 20 years. You know, when you come as a facilitator, you are telling them that this thing will cause havoc, this thing is not good. They'll be like, no. Something I've been doing 20 years ago. So the clients have more belief in the construction team than the facility manager. Same applies when I said, when we wanted to do an epoxy floor in one of our hangars, and the person was like, I can use epoxy mortar that can say that will dry up in 3 days and to be as firm as a concrete. Who were telling them that is not possible. He said it's possible. Our management had to go with it because he said they did it in so one places before, they did it in so places before. The management said facility comply with them. You can see the instruction. And on the long run, after a year plus, that thing started to crack. And they were like, we couldn't call them back because it's already our own. We just have to start the maintenance in that spot. You can imagine, I think maybe when facility managers space out more than this, people, clients will understand that these people are closer to the user than the construction team. I think that is
exactly. And the FM should speak the language that management understands. Language that has to do with data, not what you feel. You understand? For example, do a research, ask questions, find other places where that particular material you think was going to give a problem, it's already giving problem. Take pictures and bring to management. They like objective analysis, not just how you feel. And that's what we need to learn, okay?
Yeah, I understand that better. Yes.
Thank you.
Trying to find where.
Yes, and see what problem they are having, and then bring that information to accept it. All right, thanks everybody. I hope you had a good time. Enjoy your weekend, and see you again on Tuesday. Bye-bye.
Bye, and thank you
very much. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you so much. We appreciate.
Thank you.
Goodbye, sir.
Good night, sir. Thank you for the class.